Yeah, so Kashi, this thing of prana, right? So we know that loosely we call prana as life force,
Mhm.
and we know that there is life force. I read a very awesome book, maybe you've read it. It's called Our Body by Bill Bryson, where it's the book is called Our Body, a guide to the occupant. It is such a nice book. He's a physicist, this guy,
Hmm.
and he breaks it down. He says the body is made up of these chemicals, and if I would synthesize these chemicals, it would cost you $15,000, and it will cost you another 30,000 to put it together. But it still won't be life. It will
Hmm.
just be a amalgamation of chemicals. And then we got this prana, and today we cannot touch and feel it. We don't know that, oh, this is prana. So what is
Mhm.
prana?
So prana is that which powers this whole system. And just because we cannot touch or feel it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's like we can never see our own eye. We can see a reflection of the eye. We can touch the eye. We can do everything else except see the eye. You can see other people's eyes.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't mean we don't have eyes. Just because I can't see the eye doesn't mean there is no eyes. In the same way, the impact of prana is felt when we are seeing that the hand is able to move, everything is working. When someone dies, it's the same set of atoms that forms our body, yet something has gone away. So that something that goes away is what is termed as the prana. There is a very nice story in the Upanishads which talks where all the five senses start arguing and saying who is more important. So the eye says, without me, no one can see, without all of that starts happening. And the mind says, well, I control all of you. If I was not there, then you would not do anything at all. And finally, the prana, which is sitting silently there, just stands up and walks away, and everyone realizes that they don't have any existence without the prana. So
Nice.
it's a very nice story to illustrate that everything else depends on the prana. And that's why it's called the life force,
Right.
that which
So,
powers life.
right. So I also heard that there are five kinds of prana. Panch prana is called,
Mhm.
right?
So, Pancha Prana, um, prana is called prana, but yet it is also subdivided into five aspects, so to speak. So the yogic construct of looking at our existence, the way it puts together yoga and Sankhya, both of them do the same thing. They talk about what are the various flavors or what are the various functions of this prana, of this life force. For me to stay alive, there are five different functions that are enunciated. The first is prana. It refers also to the whole and also to the first aspect of prana, which is for input. So the prana is all related to all kinds of input, whether I'm inputting through the five senses, whether I'm eating food, everything that allows ingestion is related to the prana. All that's related to the output is the apana. So all my actions, my hands, feet, anything that moves from inside to outside is related to the apana. The samana is related to assimilation. I've got something inside, but now it needs to get assimilated with the system. So all assimilation functions, like you digest the food, uh, I've seen something, now I understand what it is. All of this is related to the samana. Then udana is the thing that is related to the higher functions, emotions, all of these kind of things are related to the udana. So maybe all the speech, expression, the finer sensations, all of this is related to the udana. And then the and then the
Jnana. Yeah.
vyana relates to all the transport. So I have got some input and assimilation is happening somewhere else, and then elimination is happening somewhere else, but it needs to be useful for the whole system. So Vyana helps with transport. So just like any good chemical engineering plant, where you have input, output, processing, transport, and the higher functions. So our body also uses all these five aspects to function properly. And that's why these are often delineated as five different functions of the prana. Like it's not really five different pranas out there, but it's just depending on the function, it's given a certain attribute. The same person at home would be called something else, and at office would be called something else. I'm sure
Yeah.
your wife has a different name for you, and which is very, very private, so I won't get into all of that.
Yeah, right. But it's great that you brought it up as a chemical engineer, because we were taught chemical engineering by this professor. I just love him. His name is Professor Zuvekar, and I think he was also your thesis advisor.
He was my guide too, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think he's like a saint. He's like a
Absolutely.
And he told us the first thing he came, this is CHE 101, okay, we've not done anything else. He comes to this board and he writes this thing: in minus out plus generation is equal to accumulation. He says this is life. He says everything in chemical engineering boils down to this one thing: you simply need to know how to count. It's beautiful.
Correct.
Right. So this is a great, like a summary of the five pranas. But if people want to do a little bit of in-depth study, there is so much noise out there on the internet about these
Mhm.
pranas, this, that. Could you recommend a go-to place, a go-to resource, maybe something that you have put together online or offline, whatever?
Absolutely. I think artofliving.org, we have actually put together nearly 1,500 articles on yoga, on various aspects, the philosophy of yoga, the practice of yoga. So I would actually recommend artofliving.org/yoga as the go-to resource for all things related to yoga. In fact, for those who would like to go in depth in this and maybe even study with someone, with a teacher, do a little more interactive stuff, we're doing some e-learning modules where people can come and look at small aspects if you're interested just in the philosophy of yoga. We're actually doing a modular study e-learning kind of portal on shishiyoga.org. So that's another resource that I would really recommend, where we have our credentialed teachers who come and conduct sessions, and we are continually upgrading ourselves and seeing how much we can offer all these things in a format that people can consume much more easily.
So this is artofliving.org slash India site, or is it on the global site?
So it's /yoga, and I think it's the global site. So it goes artofliving.org/yoga should get to all the articles, and
And then there is a
shishiyoga.org is so shishiyoga.
shrisriyoga.org as SRISRIYOGA, like that. Shri Shri Yoga.
Exactly. Shishiyoga.org is the thing that which will have more of interactive learning portals kind of thing.
Mhm.
Artofliving.yoga is more of a static articles kind of thing.
Yeah, awesome. So, talk to me about how the Sudarshan Kriya normalizes the Panch Pranas in our body.
I remember once in one of the teachers' refresher meets, Gurudev actually spoke about this. And he said that various pranayams affect some of these pranas. So when we have Nadi Shodhan, for example, you will find primarily it impacting the prana and apana, the in breath and the out breath, the inhalation and exhalation. Um, Practices like Kapalbhati and Agnisar, they primarily impact the Saman Vayu. There are some practices which impact the Vyana, but it is Sudarshan Kriya which has an impact on all the five Pancha Pranas. That's why often we'll see that when we're doing the Sudarshan Kriya, we have some sensations in the extremities, hands, feet. That's a sign of the Vyana being impacted. There sometimes some emotions come up, the higher functions get impacted. So the Sudarshan Kriya is one of the most unique methods of actually impacting the Udan Vayu. It's very rare for the Udana to get directly impacted.
Mhm.
Most of the times it's indirectly impacted. When you do work with the prana and apana, it also impacts the Udana in a like a side effect, so to speak. But the Sudarshan Kriya, with its rhythmic breathing, the rhythms of the breath allow us to uh, resonate at much deeper levels of the being. And that's what I feel. Just like when you have a tuning fork that's vibrating, then all the harmonics also vibrate. So in the similar way, I guess, with the Sudarshan Kriya and its various rhythms of the breath, we're actually able to impact much deeper than the surface. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And so I won't ask you what it does, because what it does is really a personal question. You do the Sudarshan Kriya and you know what it does. You just have to observe, right? But my question to you is, do we understand how it does what it does?
That's a very good question. And when I say that's a very good question, you should be ready for an answer that just skirts the issue. I'm sure you do it all the time too.
Now you're giving away the secrets, Kashi.
But the idea is that if anyone says that they know what the Sudarshan Kriya does, I think that's completely a very myopic view of what the Sudarshan Kriya is. For me, the Sudarshan Kriya is something that's alive, that's in the present moment. That the impact of it can vary from day to day, from person to person, and that's so unique because it depend. I believe that it also depends on the state of our mind right now, all the impressions that we keep carrying on from all these ages that we have this consciousness has been alive. So so my theory is that the Sudarshan Kriya does what it needs to do.
Right.
There are, and the way it impacts us is by working with the rhythms. I mean, these are the things that Gurudev has kind of laid down for us to understand, and we can the fact that this whole universe is full of rhythms, whether it's string theory or whether it's equations which are actually a function of the, like which just depict or capture the rhythms of nature. I think it's all about the rhythm. And when we're able to, and when we see that every rhythm is connected, so everything in life impacts everything else. There's the famous butterfly effect, which talks about a butterfly flapping its wings and things happening elsewhere. I remember while we were being ragged in IIT, we used to have all these kinds of tasks to connect A to B.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, the first I entered IIT as a freshie, and I don't know if you know, you remember Nitin Keskar? He was a fourth year chemical engineering guy in H5. But okay. So Keskar brought me to his room, and this was like, I don't know, at 12:30 at night. You're not used to like staying awake at midnight, etc. When you enter the institute, when you leave the institute, you're an expert at night outs. But when you enter,
That's a different thing.
yeah. So, Keskar said, okay, design an experiment to discharge an electron. And I said, what? That doesn't even make any sense. And this is the kind of stuff that we went through. But anyway, so the question was, Kashi, when we work, I mean, I worked a little bit with not you directly, but your team who was developing the Abhyasa app. Remember that? And we came up with these three dings. We said ding, 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 just so that we can transit from slow, medium, fast. And I wanted to get the ding precisely the right sound as the bell at the end of the long kriya, and we could never find that tone. So what is it with that bell tone at the end of long? It's the most perfect sound. That the ting at the end of the long kriya is harmonically brilliant. What is it?
I guess that was the way I've seen Gurudev work, is that he does something completely innocently and it turns out to be the perfect thing to ever have happened at that point of time. So I'm sure that even Gurudev never thought about what the ding should be, but he just probably picked up something that was next to him and did that, and it just came out perfect. I think when we align ourselves with the universe, then things just seem to fall into place. I often have this to say that when the universe decides one thing and we decide something else, we call it a bad decision. And when the universe decides something and I decide the same thing, I say it's a good decision. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's all about bringing in harmony. And I think that's what the Sudarshan Kriya truly does. All the pranayams truly do. It just brings more harmony into the system and allows it to harmonize.
Yeah. It's like when somebody asks me what is grace, I say grace is flowing along with the water, and no grace is flowing in reverse direction. You put a lot of effort, you don't go anywhere. Yeah.
Absolutely.